Hey everyone, Minutia Minute here. Just got back from the comic book shop. Whole lot of books for Batman this week. Let's take a look at what DC's offering for the week of September 14th. So despite DC's push of Fear State this month, this week seems to be all about old school takes on Batman. So a lot of books came out this week, as I said, but just to illustrate what I'm talking about. So first up this week, we got issue 2 of Batman 89. I'm definitely going to talk about this once the series concludes. I just read issue 1 literally this morning before I went to the comic book shop. I've got a lot of thoughts on this, but I do want to wait until the whole thing is done, and I'll be excited to share my take on it. Next up, we have a new animated series tie-in with Harley Quinn, the animated series. Not going to read this one just yet. I actually have 2 episodes of the series yet to finish. My wife and I have been watching this together. I honestly didn't know anything about it until the Blu-ray showed up, and really like this series. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it on the channel before, but if you haven't watched this, it's really good, really funny, well done. Definitely recommend, and curious to see what the comic book is like, but it will be a little bit before I actually get around to reading this one. While I didn't pick it up, we also got Batman Night Watch, which was a free Batman Day offering, which is tying into like an app for your phone. I don't know, it's for kids. I didn't even pick it up even though it was free, but there's a picture of it, so go pick it up if that's something that excites you. Another book I didn't pick up was Pennyworth, number 2 of 7. I did pick up the first issue. I never got around to reading it. I'm not really super interested in that show, so I'm probably not going to pick up the comic book. When I picked up the comic book initially, I didn't realize it was part of the show. If I circle back and read it and it blows me away, I'll go back and check it out, and maybe I'll have some thoughts for you guys. But as it stands, it's just not really something I'm that interested in. And then finally, probably the single biggest icon of alternate Batman takes from other universes, other media, you'd have to call it Batman Beyond, which is heavily featured in this month's issue of Batman Urban Legends. This is actually going to be the last Batman Urban Legends book that I pick up. I am going to go ahead and drop this finally after 7 months, which is kind of crazy. I didn't expect to really want to stick around with this one for that long, but now that the Grifter story ended, Cheer is ended, I'm not sure what's coming up next, but it's just a little bit of a chore to get through it, so I am going to let it go. But I did want to pick up number 7 just because this is all future takes on Batman. So it's just got a great theme to it. You got Batman Beyond on the cover, and of course inside. And then you also get a whole bunch of stories around future iterations of Batman. You have a future state story in here with Batgirl. You have Batman 666 in the executive game, and then Batman 1 Million in the Batman with no name. I don't know anything about Batman 1 Million. I've never read 1 Million. I thought about picking up the Omnibus back in the day, but I never got around to it, so that's going to be a little bit of a mystery for me. But everything else in here, I'm pretty curious to check out. Really happy to be picking this up, even though I am going to be letting go of Urban Legends after this month. Speaking of future takes on the Caped Crusader, we did also get issue 5 of Future State Gotham. This is a book, I'm also not going to review this one today. I am going to do a full Future State overview at some point. I'm trying to wait until nobody cares anymore, and then I'm going to drop that video. So expect that when you're least interested. I just haven't read any of the Future State stuff. It's been sitting around, piling up. I've been picking up Gotham because I know I'm going to get to it at some point. That point just hasn't come yet. So all the Batman Future State books I own. I recently picked up the Superman Future State trade paperback, so I do need to get around to this, but unfortunately I just can't read it right now. I'm not going to have any clue what's going on. But I am curious to check it out, so I'll let you know when I know more. So before going into current continuity with Batman, we've already got basically 6 books that don't fit in to the traditional Batman continuity. So what did they put out this month that is current continuity? There were only 2 books, actually. First up, we have The Joker, issue number 7. This is obviously continuing Tinian's run. You get a backup story from Punchline in this, which issue 6 left off with a great cliffhanger, so very excited to read this one and review it for you guys. And then finally, the only Fear State tie-in we got this week was I Am Batman number 1, which I don't think I reviewed issue 0. When it comes to the next Batman and the next Batman Second Son, those are actually all sitting in my Future State pile. So the only I Am Batman issue I did read was number 0. To be honest, I kind of found it sort of generic. The big thing that brought it down for me more than anything really was the artwork. I really didn't get that much out of Travel Foreman's like empty panels, empty artwork, and I found it actually really distracting. It'll be interesting to see how this one reads with a different artist. We've got Oliver Coipel. We've got Oliver Coipel. Sorry, probably mispronouncing that, but we've got him. I leafed through it. Honestly, the artwork didn't blow me away in this one either, but it sort of depends. You know, you have to read it in tandem with looking at it to really know how it's going to play out. So the cover's kind of cool. It's got a decent amount of atmosphere to it. So we'll see how it goes. And obviously this is our only dose of Future State for the week. So we'll see how it actually ties in, or if it's more like the last issue of Catwoman where it really didn't tie in. So that said, this is our only dose of Fear State for the week. So we'll see how it holds up, how it ties in, and if we're moving in the right direction on Tinian's big Batman crossover. Alright, so first book I read this week was Batman Urban Legends. I'm not going to give this a full review for you guys, but I did want to call it out. If you are a fan of Batman Beyond, this is a book you're going to want to pick up, I think. So for me, I've watched Batman Beyond. It's been a long time. I've actually been meaning to go back through the whole Timmyverse. With Superman the Animated Series finally coming out on Blu-ray, I'm planning on just going through everything again, which I think will be really fun. But that said, the last time I read a Batman Beyond comic book was the Batman Beyond series pre-DC New 52, if I remember correctly. So I'm not super versed in what's happened over the last few years. I know there have been some big developments with like Batgirl and so on and so forth. So understand I'm coming in at it from that perspective. But that said, I thought this was a fantastic read for Batman Beyond. I am going to spoil some things, so if you haven't read it yet, I recommend going out and picking it up. But basically, we open the book with the death of Bruce Wayne, and it's all about Terry McGinnis finding out who was powerful enough to stop Bruce Wayne's pacemaker. It had to be someone that could get into the Bat computer and, next level hacking skills, next level influence. And he goes around, confronts Boss Maroni. And as the story develops, you find out that, and this is maybe an oversimplification, but basically you find out that the Bat computer itself killed Bruce Wayne, which I thought was a really, really interesting twist. The Bat computer is tied to all the next level AI and networking that goes into Neo Gotham, and it has acquired a mind of its own, and it decides that Bruce Wayne needs to go and Batman needs to go. So he has a final confrontation with the computer in the Batcave, and it ultimately sets up what is going to be Batman Beyond Neo Year number 1, which is coming April 2022. Very excited for that. I think that is going to be a super fun read. As for the other titles in this, Batman 666 was fine. I'm really not a huge fan of the future Damian Wayne as Batman. He looks cool. He's got that Nightmare Batman look, but I read the mini-series that Adam Kubert did back in the day. Obviously, I read all the Grant Morrison stuff. I was never the biggest fan of Grant Morrison's run on Batman, but it was interesting enough. This story, it didn't do a lot for me, although I will say the art in it I thought was particularly well done. It kind of gives me a 90s prestige comics kind of vibe to it. which is kind of neat. So it was worth it for the artwork, even though the story just didn't do a lot for me. And I don't know if they're going to be doing more with Batman 666 in the future, or if this is just kind of intended as a one-off. I did not read the Future State story. I'm putting this book in my pile of Future State books, so I'll go through it when I go through those. And last but not least, the final story I read was the DC 1 Million book, which, again, I thought pretty great artwork. I thought that it, each of the books in this, you get a different take on Batman, and you get a pretty definitive, different style of artwork in each, all of which I think hold up really well and are actually pretty spectacular. Since I've never read DC 1 Million, this is another one where the story was probably kind of lost on me, but it was fun seeing the 1 million era Batman taking on all kinds of different versions of Batman that have existed over the years. You get to see Nightfall Batman. You even get to see the Zur-En-Arrh Batman from, obviously, the aforementioned Grant Morrison run. So all told, kind of a fun little 1 million year romp, even though typical to any Grant Morrison lore is pretty obtuse and deep cuts. The second book I read this week, The Joker, by James Tynion and Gilliam March. This is a series that I have really been enjoying. It's never like the top of my list, but it is a good read week to week. More so than other books, it really does feel like a season of a show on HBO. Partly because of the adult content, and partly because Tynion does a good job with the slow burn in this. Similar to the main Batman title, there are a lot of characters, a lot of interested parties trying to get the Joker, all of whom have their own motives, but unlike the main Batman title, it really takes its time letting you get to know who all these people are and slowly unveiling what they're all up to, which makes it a fun read. The one thing that makes me reticent about this book is with Tynion leaving, I'm just curious to know where they're going to wrap this up. Is this going to keep going, or is this going to have a finite conclusion? Because there's a little bit of a soap opera element to this, where it seems like they're just introducing more and more things, and it could just go forever if they wanted it to. So I'm really curious to see where things ultimately go. I had almost forgotten, actually, as you can see on this page here, that there's the Court of Owls and the new leader of the Court of Owls that was introduced way back in like the second or third issue, something like that. We haven't seen a ton from them the last couple of issues, but now they're back. One thing I want to call out about the art in this that I found really, really great, kind of a high point of the issue overall, was the way Gilliam March illustrates Cassandra Cain's Batgirl. I feel like, aside from the cartoonish style of the original Batgirl series from the early 2000s, no one's really been able to come up with an art style that really fits her character in an interesting way. The way Gilliam illustrates her, it's like borderline Kelly Jones from the 90s. So it does have sort of this otherworldly quality to it, but it's not cartoony in the same way that those old books were. And I thought that actually fit the character really well. The other thing that was great about her character in this is she actually gets to kick some butt, which felt really great. With all of the complaints I've had with her in the past, just being kind of a nerfed character, seeing her go up against a member of the Court of Owls and just kicking butt felt really good and was a lot of fun. As for the backup story, we are on to Chapter 7 of Punchline, which for me is always the story I'm actually looking forward to the most. The main reason I started picking this up in the first place was for the Punchline story, because I am one of those big Punchline fans. So when we left things off last month, Bluebird was breaking into prison a la Face Off, and she is going to try and get to the bottom of Punchline's criminal network from the inside, but Punchline recognizes her and everything kind of goes out the window. In this, you get the fallout of that, which is that she's living in basically ductwork in the prison and is trying to come up with a way to find Kelly Ness, which she does at the end of this issue. Overall, they're doing a good job continuing to develop this story. As usual, my only complaint is that it's too short. Like, I just wish we got a little bit more every month, and this was its own issue. But aside from that, all told, Joker #7, good issue, worth a read. If you've been picking it up, this is definitely worth continuing to pick up. If you're not picking it up, it's definitely one you probably want to wait for the trade, because this is told in chapters. There's multiple chapters in each issue, and it does feel like something that would be kind of interesting to read just in one big. Alright, last but not least, the big Fear State tie-in, I Am Batman. Or is it a Fear State tie-in? There's no Fear State on the corner. It's just listed on the checklist of books you need to pick up for Fear State. This is definitely not a traditional Fear State tie-in, if it really is a tie-in. This picks up what appears to be 6 years later, and is more or less a Future State book through and through. Taken on its own merits, this was actually a really good issue. I really enjoyed this a lot. It was definitely jarring, since I Am Batman 0 really did fall into that Fear State category, where it really, it starts before Fear State, and now issue 1 seems to be picking up after Fear State. I almost wonder if it would have been better if they launched this title a little bit later, like put the 0 issue out when they did, and then launched this in like December, but obviously time will tell and we'll find out. I said when I picked up the book that I wasn't quite sure about the artwork. I decided as things continued to ramp up that I did actually like the artwork. I felt like it fit the story quite well. It wasn't necessarily like mind-blowing, but they do a good job of setting up like the fog and pollution in this future Gotham City. There's light pollution, there's regular pollution, and it just creates a haze around everything. That as I continued reading it, I thought that it really fit the tone of the story quite well. It's kind of interesting because if you think about it, the origins of this new Batman is you have, Jace Fox, who's associated with Lucius Fox, who was associated with Batman, now taking up the mantle himself. He has a motorcycle that he rides around in, which they've got some cool action sequences with that. And really, it kind of actually is oddly like Batgirl in the sense that, Barbara Gordon is associated with Jim Gordon, who's associated with Batman, takes up the cowl herself, runs around on a motorcycle all the time. Like, I don't know if that's intentional, but it kind of made me chuckle as I was going through. But overall, this book reads really fast. It only took me a few minutes to really get through the whole thing. I actually read it again and kind of just absorbed the artwork. That's a pretty cool shot of him on the motorcycle, by the way. Something about Batman on a motorcycle is actually really cool. They don't do it enough, so I'm glad he's got a motorcycle in this. There is the death of a major character that I won't spoil here. So, I Am Batman #1. Actually a pretty good read. I really enjoyed this. It really makes me feel like I'm missing something by not going back and making sure I'm all caught up on Future States, so I'm definitely going to have to do that sooner rather than later now. My time has run out. Those books are just so huge. Like, the next Batman book, it's like each issue is like a zillion pages, and so by the time I went back and picked them all up, I was like, oh, this is going to take a while to get through, and it was a little bit daunting, but time has definitely caught up with me. I need to get through those so I know fully what's going on. If you are really in it just for Future State, I'm not going to say that this is worth a pickup. As a matter of fact, this might be worth picking up in trade, specifically at the end of Fear State, because it could well be that we'll be on the first trade by the time all the Fear State stuff is wrapping up, in which case this will be probably a good follow-up to what happens with Fear State, but obviously only time will tell. If you're into it, check it out. If not, maybe give it a wait. I will continue to review it as we go forward and let you know my thoughts as the picture becomes more. So all told, a lot of books featuring Batman this week. I picked up 5 of them. There were 7, I think, in total. Definitely something for everybody if you're looking for something different. A lot more books this week than last week. If you only picked up 1 book this week, of the books that I read, the one I would definitely recommend is Batman Urban Legends. But that said, mileage may vary, and I haven't read everything that came out this week yet, obviously. So regardless, I hope you guys have a great week in comics. If you read any Batman books, let me know down in the comments if there's anything I should be picking up that I'm not, and have a good one.